Dad perfect events. I watched my son-in-law's fist explode across my daughter's face like a sledgehammer hitting glass. The sound echoed through my dining room on Christmas morning, followed by the crash of Linda's antique angels hitting the floor. But what made my blood freeze wasn't the violence. It was his brother sitting there with a wine glass, smiling like he was watching his favorite TV show. Megan's head snapped back so hard I heard her neck pop. She hit the wall and slid down, leaving a smear of blood on the white paint. The whole room went dead silent, except for the sound of porcelain angels shattering on the hardwood floor. But Tyler's older brother Corey just sat there, swirling his wine, and said with that sick smile, finally someone had to teach her to shut up. That's when I reached for my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in 15 years. Because in that moment, I knew this wasn't just about a man hitting his wife. This was about something much bigger. My name is Gary Phillips. I'm 62 years old, and I spent 30 years as an insurance investigator before I retired to what I thought would be peaceful golden years here in Denver. I thought I'd seen every kind of fraud, every kind of lie, every kind of scheme people could dream up. But I never expected to use those skills to take down my own son-in-law. See, Megan is my only child, and she married Tyler Brooks 3 years ago. I'll be honest with you, I never liked the guy from day one. There was something in his eyes that didn't match his smile, something calculating. My wife Linda always told me I was being overprotective. Every father thinks no man is good enough for his daughter, she'd say. Maybe she was right, but 30 years of investigating insurance claims teaches you to spot when the numbers don't add up. And Tyler's numbers never added up. He claimed to be an investment advisor, always showing up in expensive suits that probably cost more than most people make in a month. Every year, there was a new BMW in the driveway. Every holiday, he'd flash around a new Rolex or some other piece of jewelry that should have been way outside his budget. When I'd ask him about his work, he'd give me these vague answers about helping people manage their portfolios and then change the subject real quick. But here's the thing about being an investigator. You learn to watch people. You learn to see the little things that don't quite fit. And with Tyler, there were a lot of little things. The Christmas dinner was Linda's idea. She wanted the whole family together for once. Me and Linda, Megan and Tyler, Tyler's brother Corey and his wife Amanda, plus my sister Carol and her husband Pete. We'd been having what seemed like a nice time up until that moment. Opening presents, drinking eggnog, everyone pretending to get along. But I'd been noticing things all day. The way Megan flinched when Tyler raised his hand, even just to reach for the salt. The long sleeves she wore despite the heat from the fireplace. How she kept excusing herself to go to the bathroom like she was trying to escape something. And the way Tyler would watch her when she left the room, his jaw clenched tight. These were the same signs I'd learned to recognize in my work, the tells that meant someone was hiding something important. Only this time, it wasn't about insurance fraud. This was about my daughter living in fear. We were halfway through dinner when everything went to hell. Megan had made some innocent comment about Tyler's new truck, something about wondering if the monthly payments were manageable. It was the kind of thing any spouse might say, nothing mean about it, but I saw Tyler's jaw clench, saw his knuckles go white around his fork. You want to talk about money? His voice dropped to that dangerous register that every father learns to recognize. You want to question how I provide for this family? You, who haven't worked a real day since we got married? Megan Brooks. She'd taken his name when they married. Though right now I was wishing she hadn't. Looked down at her plate, her voice getting small. Tyler, I didn't mean anything by it. I was just, shut your mouth. He stood up slowly, like a predator getting ready to strike. I started to get up too, but Linda grabbed my arm. Gary, don't make a scene. It's Christmas. That's when I should have moved faster. That's when I should have trusted my instincts instead of my wife's desire to keep the peace. Because that's when Tyler grabbed Megan by her hair and yanked her to her feet. She cried out, her hands flying to her head, trying to ease the pain. And then he hit her. Not a slap. This was a closed fist punch to the face that sent her sprawling into the wall like a rag doll. The room exploded in chaos. My sister Carol screamed and jumped back from the table. Amanda knocked over her wine glass as she stood up. Linda's hand flew to her mouth in horror. But through it all, Corey just sat there watching with that satisfied expression, like he was enjoying a good movie. And that's when he said those words that sealed both their fates. Finally, someone had to teach her to shut up. In that moment, everything clicked into place. This wasn't Tyler's first time hitting my daughter. This wasn't some holiday stress boiling over. And Corey's reaction told me this was something they'd both been expecting, maybe even planning. I didn't think about consequences. I didn't worry about family drama or keeping the peace. I pulled out my phone and called the one person I knew could help me figure out what Tyler Brooks was really up to: Steve Hamilton. Former FBI agent turned private investigator. We'd worked together on a massive fraud case back in 2007, involving a network of fake medical clinics, billing insurance companies for treatments that never happened. Steve had told me back then, if I ever needed anything at all, to call him. The phone rang twice before I heard that familiar gravelly voice. "Phillips, that you? I need you. At my house. Now. Bring whoever you trust most." I gave him my address without taking my eyes off Tyler, who was now pacing around like a caged animal. "What's happening?" I looked at Tyler, who was standing over Megan as she cowered against the wall, blood dripping from her lip onto her white Christmas sweater. I looked at Corey, still sitting there calmly, like nothing unusual had happened. Domestic violence in progress. And Steve, I think there's a lot more to this than just a man hitting his wife. I'm on my way. Keep everyone there. Don't let anyone leave. Tyler was staring at me now, his face red with rage. "Who the hell did you call, old man?" "Someone who's going to have a very interesting conversation with you," I said quietly, moving to Megan's side. I helped her to her feet, and she was shaking so badly I could feel it through her whole body. "It's okay, honey. It's going to be okay now." Tyler let out this ugly laugh that made my skin crawl. "You think calling someone is going to change anything? This is between me and my wife. This is family business." "Actually," I said, keeping my voice as steady as I could manage, "the moment you put your hands on her in my house, you made it my business." That's when Corey finally stood up. He was bigger than Tyler, broader in the shoulders, and he carried himself with this authority that didn't match what I knew about his supposed job selling cars. "Mr. Phillips, I think you're overreacting here. Tyler and Megan have their issues, like any married couple. Sometimes things get a little heated, you know? It happens." "A little heated?" I repeated, not believing what I was hearing. "Is that what you call a grown man punching his wife in the face?" Corey's whole demeanor shifted then, from fake pleasant to something much more threatening. "I call it none of your concern, and I suggest you put that phone away and let this family handle their own business." I took a closer look at him then. Really looked. The expensive watch on his wrist. That was a Patek Philippe. Had to be worth at least 50 grand. The custom suit he'd worn to Christmas dinner, the way he held himself, like he was used to people doing what he told them to do. And suddenly, my investigator brain started putting pieces together. "How long has this been going on?" I asked Megan quietly. She wouldn't look at me. "Dad, please, just leave it alone." "How long?" Her voice came out in a whisper. "A year. Maybe longer." That hit me like a physical blow. A whole year. My daughter had been living in hell for a year, and I'd been too blind to see it clearly, too willing to believe her excuses about walking into doors, about being clumsy, about all those bruises she'd explained away. Tyler was pacing now, running his hands through his hair like he was trying to figure out how to control the situation. "This is ridiculous. Megan, tell them. Tell them you're fine. Tell them we just had a little argument." Megan said nothing. "Megan!" Tyler's voice rose, and I saw her flinch. "Tell them. She doesn't have to tell us anything," I said firmly. We all saw what we saw. That's when Tyler made what would turn out to be his biggest mistake. He pulled out his phone and made a call, right there in front of all of us. "Yeah, it's me. We have a problem. The old man's making noise." He paused, listening to whoever was on the other end. "I don't care what you're doing right now. Get over here, now." He hung up and turned to me with this smug smile. "You want to make this complicated, Mr. Phillips? Fine, let's make it complicated." But what Tyler didn't understand was that I'd been dealing with complicated for 30 years. And that phone call he'd just made, that was evidence. Evidence that this wasn't just about domestic violence. That call told me there were other people involved, other people who had a stake in keeping Tyler's secrets. While we waited, I kept watching both Tyler and Corey. The way they kept looking at each other, having these silent conversations with their eyes. The way Corey kept checking his own phone, like he was expecting updates about something. And the way Tyler kept glancing toward the door, like he was planning an escape route. Linda was taking care of Megan, getting ice for her face, talking to her in quiet, soothing tones. My sister Carol was on her phone in the corner. I hoped she was calling 911, but I couldn't be sure. Amanda, Corey's wife, just sat there looking terrified, like she knew something bad was coming and didn't know how to stop it. That's when I noticed Amanda kept looking at Corey with this expression I recognized from my work. It was the same look I'd seen on the faces of people who knew their spouses were involved in something illegal, but were too scared to speak up. She knew. Whatever Tyler and Corey were into, Amanda knew about it. 20 minutes felt like 20 hours, but finally I heard cars pulling into my driveway. Steve Hamilton didn't come alone. Through the front window, I could see him getting out of one car while two other people got out of another. One was a woman I didn't recognize, and the other was a man in a Denver PD jacket. They walked through my front door without knocking, badges already visible. Tyler's face went dead white. "Who the hell are you people?" he demanded, but his voice cracked when he said it. Steve Hamilton stepped forward, and I remembered why I'd always respected the man. He had this presence that filled up a room, the kind of authority that came from years of dealing with people who thought they were smarter than the law. Steve Hamilton, private investigator. This is Detective Lisa Morgan from Denver PD and Sarah Chen from the Domestic Violence Unit. We're here on behalf of Mr. Phillips. Steve's eyes swept the room, taking in everything at once. The broken Christmas decorations scattered on the floor, Megan's swollen face, the defensive positions everyone had taken around the room. This was a man who knew how to read a crime scene. Anyone want to? Tell me what happened here. This is a private residence, Corey said, trying to sound authoritative. You people have no authority here. Actually, I was invited by the homeowner, which gives me every right to be here. Steve turned to Megan, his voice gentling. Ma'am, are you all right? Do you need medical attention? Megan looked at me, then at Tyler, then back at Steve. I could see her wrestling with herself, years of fear fighting against the chance for freedom. Finally, she made her choice. He hit me, she said, her voice small but clear. My husband hit me. Steve nodded like this was exactly what he'd expected to hear. Detective Morgan is going to take some photographs and get your statement. Ms. Chen here specializes in domestic violence cases. She's going to make sure you're safe. Over the next few hours, my house became something like a police station. They separated all of us, taking individual statements. A photographer documented Megan's injuries. Detective Morgan interviewed each family member about what they had witnessed. While the official business was happening, I managed to pull Steve aside. There's something else, I told him. Tyler's lifestyle doesn't match his supposed income. New BMW every year, expensive clothes, custom suits, jewelry that costs more than most people make in 6 months. His job as an investment advisor shouldn't cover any of that. Steve's eyes sharpened with interest. What are you thinking? I'm thinking 30 years of investigating insurance fraud taught me to recognize the signs when someone's living way above their means. And I'm thinking his brother Corey is in on whatever they're running. Steve glanced over at Corey, who was being questioned by Detective Morgan. That watch he's wearing? Patek Philippe. Probably 50 grand, maybe more. On a car salesman's salary. Steve nodded slowly. Let me make some calls. While Steve worked his contacts, the police arrested Tyler on assault charges. As they put the cuffs on him, he turned to Megan, with pure venom in his eyes. You're going to regret this, he hissed. You have no idea what you just started. Detective Morgan immediately added witness intimidation to his charges. Corey tried to leave with Amanda, but Steve blocked their path. I'd stick around if I were you. I've got some questions. Am I being detained? Corey asked. Not yet, but the night's young. 3 days later, Steve called me with news that changed everything. Megan was staying with me and Linda now, sleeping in her old bedroom, slowly starting to heal. She'd been quiet those first few days, mostly just staring out the window or holding on to Linda like she was afraid to let go. Gary, your instincts were dead on, Steve said over the phone. I've been working with the insurance fraud division, and they've had their eye on a ring operating in the Denver area for the past 2 years. Staged accidents, false injury claims, billing for medical treatments that never happened. They've suspected there was an organized group behind it, but they couldn't get anyone inside to talk. Everyone was too scared. Let me guess, Tyler and Corey Brooks are on their radar, right at the top of the list. They've been tracking a pattern of suspicious claims, all linked back to the same medical providers, the same attorneys, the same investigators. Conservative estimate, We're looking at over $3 million in fraudulent claims over the past 3 years. I let out a low whistle. $3 million. That explained the BMWs and the Rolex watches and the custom suits. So, when Tyler hit Megan, he wasn't just an abusive husband, I said. He was a criminal protecting his operation. Exactly. And here's the thing. We think he's been keeping Megan isolated and scared because she might have seen or heard something that could bring the whole thing down. That evening, I sat down with Megan. She was curled up in her old bed, holding the teddy bear she'd had since she was 5. For a moment, she looked like that little girl again, and it broke my heart to think about what she'd been through. "Honey," I said gently, "I need you to tell me everything you remember about Tyler's work, any conversations you overheard, any meetings at the house, anything that seemed odd or out of place." She was quiet for a long moment, just staring at that teddy bear. Then, slowly, it all started coming out. "There were meetings," she said. "Late at night in our basement. Men would come over, people I'd never met before. Tyler always told me to stay upstairs when they were meeting, to never come down no matter what I heard. Did you ever hear what they talked about?" "Once." Her voice got even smaller. "I was scared because they were being so loud, shouting about something. I went to the top of the stairs to listen. They were talking about someone's car accident, about how the insurance claim had gone through, about splitting up money. And then someone, I think it was Corey, said something about the next one, about making sure the injuries looked real this time. My blood ran cold. They weren't just filing false claims. They were actually staging accidents, getting people hurt on purpose. "There's more," Megan continued, her voice barely a whisper. "I heard them talking about people who got hurt worse than they planned. Someone mentioned a man who ended up paralyzed, and there was this woman who—" She stopped, shaking her head. "What about the woman, honey? She died, Dad." They were arguing about it, about how it wasn't supposed to happen that way. Tyler was furious, saying they needed to be more careful. That's when I realized they weren't just stealing money. They were actually hurting people on purpose. I had to sit down. My daughter had been married to a man who was running a criminal enterprise that had gotten someone killed. The thought made me physically sick. Over the next 3 months, I worked closer with Steve and Detective Morgan than I had with anyone since my retirement. We built the case methodically, like we were constructing a building from the foundation up. Financial records, bank statements, insurance claim patterns, victim interviews. Megan provided crucial testimony about the basement meetings and every conversation she could remember. The FBI got involved when they realized the scope of what Tyler and Corey were running. This wasn't just a couple of guys filing false claims. They had recruited desperate people, folks who were behind on their rent, facing foreclosure, struggling with medical bills, and convinced them to participate in staged accidents, car crashes, slip and falls, workplace incidents. The victims would get paid a small fraction of the claim money while Tyler and Corey kept the rest. But sometimes the accidents went wrong. Sometimes people got hurt worse than planned. And in at least 2 cases, people had died. Agent Patricia Walsh from the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division sat in my living room one afternoon in March, spreading out photographs and documents across Linda's coffee table. "Mr. Phillips, what your son-in-law was running wasn't just insurance fraud. It was organized crime. They had corrupt doctors signing off on fake injuries, attorneys filing fraudulent claims, investigators writing bogus reports. And at the center of it all were Tyler and Corey Brooks, coordinating everything." "How many people were involved?" I asked. "We've identified at least 30 people in the network. Doctors, lawyers, investigators, recruiters who found desperate people willing to get hurt for money. The total amount we can prove, just over $3.2 million, but we suspect it's much higher. The hardest part was watching what this did to Megan. Some days she was strong, determined to see justice done. Other days she could barely get out of bed, overwhelmed by the guilt of not speaking up sooner, of not realizing what Tyler was capable of. "I lived with him for 3 years, she told me one evening as we sat on the back porch. "I slept next to him every night. How could I not? I know he was capable of murder?" "Because he made sure you couldn't know," Linda said, stroking Megan's hair like she used to when she was little. "He kept you scared, isolated, afraid to ask questions. That was part of his plan. The trial took 8 months to prepare. Tyler and Corey were held without bail, deemed flight risks given the severity of the charges and the amount of money involved. Their attorney, Nathan Rivera, was also arrested after investigators discovered he'd been laundering money through fake legal settlements. When the trial finally started, the prosecution laid out their case like a master class in organized crime. Financial records showing millions of dollars flowing through fake companies. Wiretapped phone calls between Tyler and his network of corrupt professionals. Testimony from the people who'd been recruited to stage accidents, many of whom had been threatened into silence for years. And then Megan took the stand. She testified for 6 hours over 2 days. She told the jury about the abuse, about being too scared to leave, about the basement meetings and the whispered phone calls, about Tyler's threats and Corey's cold encouragement, about living in fear for over a year while her husband ran a criminal empire from their basement. The defense attorney tried everything to discredit her. He suggested she was making things up out of revenge, that she was an unreliable witness because of her emotional state. But Megan didn't break. "I have the medical records from every time he hit me," she said, looking that attorney right in the eye. "I have the photographs my therapist helped me take of bruises I'd been hiding for years. I have the testimony of my family who witnessed the violence. And I have recordings of conversations I started making after that Christmas dinner, when I finally realized I needed to document what was happening. The only thing I'm seeking is justice for everyone my husband hurt, including myself." That last part surprised everyone, including me. Megan had never mentioned any recordings, but during a recess, she explained to the prosecution team that she'd started using her phone to record Tyler's angry rants after that night, building her own evidence file in case she ever found the courage to leave. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. When they came back, the foreman stood up and read the verdicts in a clear, firm voice. On the charge of conspiracy to commit insurance fraud in the first degree, we find the defendant Tyler Brooks guilty. On the charge of racketeering, we find the defendant Tyler Brooks guilty. On the charges of assault and witness intimidation, we find the defendant Tyler Brooks guilty. The list went on and on. Guilty on all counts. Tyler Brooks was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison for the fraud and racketeering charges, plus an additional 10 years on state charges for assault and domestic violence. Corey got 20 years federal. The other members of their organization received sentences ranging from 5 to 15 years, depending on their level of involvement. The civil suits came after the criminal convictions. The insurance companies sued to recover their losses. The families of the people who'd been killed sued for wrongful death. Tyler and Corey lost everything: their houses, their cars, their bank accounts, all of it seized and sold to pay restitution to their victims. A year after that Christmas dinner, Megan and I sat on my back porch watching another sunset. She'd started a new job working as a victim advocate, helping other domestic violence survivors navigate the legal system and find their voices. "Dad," she said quietly, "I never thanked you properly for making that call, for believing me, for not giving up when it would have been easier to just pretend everything was fine." I put my arm around her shoulders. "Honey, I failed you for a whole year by not seeing what was happening sooner. Making that phone call was the least I could do." "You didn't fail me," she said firmly. "When it mattered most, when I needed someone to act, you didn't hesitate. You chose action over keeping the peace. You chose justice." She was right. In that moment on Christmas morning, when I saw Tyler's fist connect with my daughter's face and heard Corey's disgusting encouragement, I made a choice. I chose to use every skill I'd learned in 30 years of investigation work to make sure these men faced consequences for what they'd done. That one phone call didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the trauma or undo the damage, but it started a chain of events that brought justice not just for Megan, but for all the people Tyler and Corey had hurt over the years. Sometimes, that's all it takes. One person willing to make the call, one person refusing to look the other way, one person saying, "No more. I'm Gary Phillips. I'm 62 years old. And when I watched my son-in-law hit my daughter that Christmas morning, I made a choice that changed everything. I chose my daughters. Safety over family harmony. I chose justice over silence. And I'd make that same choice again without hesitation. Because that's what fathers do. That's what decent people do when they see evil happening right in front of them. You don't turn away. You act. The most dangerous criminals aren't the ones who look like monsters. They're the ones who smile at Christmas dinner while planning their next victim. The ones who use love and fear as weapons more deadly than any gun. Sometimes the biggest case of your career isn't the one that pays the most or gets you promoted. It's the one where you use everything you've learned to save the person who matters most, even if that person happens to be your own flesh and blood.